Hello, everyone. Welcome in. It is the Week 11 edition of Stacking the Box with Best Bets with Betsided. I am Matt Verderame. He is Ben Heisler. Normally, we have Ian McMillan here this week, but Ian, for the week, is resigned in disgrace after his picks are barely better than mine. So that's where we are. Heisler, how you doing today?
I'm good. I'm good. Ready for the Week 11 slate to start. Feeling fairly confident, Verderame. I think we had a good week last week on stacking the box, so hopefully we can continue it forward today.
Yeah, our Stacking the Box picks has just been ungodly, which is obviously largely a credit to yourself. We are getting the job done. Today is going to be a shorter show. We go to 11:30 Central, 12:30 Eastern. Heisler's got to get out of here for radio, and I frankly am going to grab an early lunch. So it works out for everybody. Well, let's get right down into it. So last week, I'm going to tally it up here in my head as we go through the first game of this week. I'll let everybody know how I did, and I'll tally up Ian as well so we can trash him if he didn't do well. But let's get it rolling. First game of the week, the Ravens at home, biggest spread that there is on the board. In fact, the only double-digit spread on the board at all. Taking on the Carolina Panthers. The Ravens are favored by 13 points in this game. Total's 41.5. It's cold but and windy in Baltimore. How do you see this game playing out?
It's going to be ugly, but I think ultimately I'm probably going to lean on the over here at 41.5. Just too much explosiveness on the Ravens side. I know that they're still missing a few guys, but Andrews hopefully likely will be back today. They're just Carolina is just so hit or miss, and even though they've had a couple strong games defensively, with the way that the Ravens are now playing on the defensive level, as evidence from that game on Monday night against the Saints, they're going to be locked in at home. Lamar Jackson has had some issues covering the spread at home, as has John Harbaugh. They've had some issues also off the bye, but that's why I'm leaning more towards the over because I feel like they'll be able to score, and it's just a matter of whether or not they take their foot off the gas pedal for Carolina in garbage time.
Yeah, I agree. Look, I think it's an interesting call. By the way, last week I was 6-6. I don't know how to count units, so good luck to you there. McMillan was 4-8, which is why he's not here today because he's still trying to figure out what the hell went
We deported him back to Canada to spend non-Thanksgiving with his stuff.
I'll tell you what it was. It was the Devils. They kicked Toronto's ass earlier this week.
That's right.
Over. The Devils, by the way, Lucas, are not overrated. They continue to win. They keep cramming it down the throats of the National Hockey League. 12 straight, a wagon. All right. I've got Baltimore at minus 12.5. I just think the Panthers stink. Like I don't know. I know Baker's playing. I don't care. They're not good. Like they're not good at anything they do. I don't trust them on the road. Baltimore's off a bye. Like it just feels like the kind of game where it's going to be like 37-10. Like I just which would also hit your over, of course.
Right.
I have no faith Carolina's keeping this game close. None. I will be shocked if this is a football game in the third quarter. But, Baltimore's been weird. Normally in past years, they've just blown out bad teams. This year, they have a tendency to let teams back in the game and the teams hang around. I'm still riding with a minus 12.5. I know it's a lot of points to swallow. I think they win this game by 20 points.
Yeah. Panthers have yet to win a non-division game this year. They're 0-6 against the spread. I should say yet to win a game against the spread. But the Ravens are still 0-3 against the spread as a home favorite this year. And since 2018, they're only 12-21-0 against the spread when they're favorites in their home stadium. So that's why I'm a little bit concerned. I think they should roll. They're my survivor team this week, but definitely a little bit of concern that they just let Carolina get that extra bit of points. And that's why I like the over here instead.
Okay, makes sense. All right, so now we got to move to a game that's in Detroit but doesn't feature the Lions. We have the Bills and the Browns. The Bills are the home team. They had to move this game because there's about 87 feet of snow in Buffalo right now. The line has been all over the map. It is currently sitting at Buffalo minus 7.5. The total's 49.5. I will lead off with this because I'm going to lose this game. I picked this when it was supposed to be in Buffalo and it was snowing. So I took an under 41.5, which is not going to happen. I took it because I figured who the hell is going to score in that game, but then they moved it. If I hit that, it's going to be because it's 30-10 or something. I do not think I'm going to hit it. I hope I do. But the only thing I'll say in this game is the one path for Cleveland is to just run the ball, run it and run it and run it. Buffalo can't stop anybody on the ground. I still think though this creeps over my line. Where are you on this game?
Yeah, I'm on the under as well. It's actually continued to creep up in the low 50s. I was like you, Verderame. I took the under in this game when I first heard about the possible snowstorm. I didn't expect it to be several feet. But I think I grabbed it at 44 and a half at the beginning of the week. And then once the lines reset, and by the way, for anybody who did bet this game in the earlier portion of the week, your sports book is almost certainly going to void that bet. They might offer you the option to be able to cash out, but there's some that might keep it. But every sportsbook is different. The majority of them will void it because it's in a totally different location. I'm on the under here. You're right. Like, it's going to be a matter of whether or not Cleveland is able to run the ball effectively against Buffalo. There have been teams that have been able to do so successfully. I like Chubb on a prop bet to go over his longest rush of 17.5 yards. Verderame, Nick Chubb this year has had 10 games with a run of 20 plus yards this year. So he's done it in 12 of 13 games, going all the way back to last year. To me, that's almost free money on the board, given the fact that it's indoors. Should be a lot easier for him to run today. But I'll go under here. I expect the Bills defense to go up. And as we saw last week, Cleveland, when they get behind big, it kind of completely changes the dynamic of their offense. And Buffalo's going to come out, I think, ready to play. It might be tough for them initially. It might be a slow start, given that they had a hard time getting out of Buffalo because they had to leave late. But they're going to be prepared here. I think they'll be just fine.
Well, then the Verderame Sportsbook has voided the 41.5 under bet, and he's going Buffalo minus 7.5 for the record. That's how we're going to count this when I duel with Ian next week. All right, Colts, Eagles in Indianapolis. Indy is a 6.5-point dog. The total is 45.5. Obviously, it doesn't matter what the weather is. It is indoors. You and I on opposite sides of this.
We are, and this is more of a reflection of where a lot of the sharps are going with this game. They're on Indianapolis, and I think it's because they expect with Matt Ryan now under center that it's going to be a closer game. The offense just seemed to have a lot better flow to it. Granted, it was against the Raiders last week, so you can kind of throw that out. The defense is still missing guys. Shaquille Leonard's going to be out the rest of the year. I think the big key is Jonathan Taylor, because you can run on Philadelphia. That was evidenced last week. They're coming off of a short week in that loss against Washington. They're clearly the superior team, but they are on the road. If the Colts are able to get a lead at halftime, and that's also difficult to do given how good the Eagles have been in the first half, Jonathan Taylor can just run it the rest of the way. And I think the Colts are going to be able to be a little bit safe here. Again, my first reaction was to take the Eagles, especially under 7. But with the way that number has continued to pound on Indianapolis from the sharps, the guys that are much smarter than me, kind of have to side with them here. So I'll take the Colts at plus 6.5.
Fair enough. I am taking Philly 6.5. I think the Colts stink, and the Raiders just stink so bad that they made the Colts look semi-respectable. I am believing in the Eagles to go on the road here. You're right. Without Jordan Davis, the Eagles have been susceptible to the run. It's why they went out and got Ndamukong Suh. It's why they went out and bolstered the middle of that line of Linval Joseph, another one. It's the kind of a game that if the Colts are going to win, it's going to be a lot of just moving the chains on third down, finding a way to play situational football. But I'm going with Philly. I think Philadelphia's coming off the loss. I think they're going to want blood in this game. I think they're going to want to get right. I could see a scenario where your bet certainly does cash, and the Colts just keep it close enough where, they never really threaten a win, but they find a way to keep it within a touchdown. I'll take Philadelphia, though, to swallow the 6.5. I think they win by 7 to 10 points.
One other note to consider, and you can find all of these on BetSided Thursday afternoon. We point out, there's a million different trends for every team and every game. We try to sort through the ones that actually matter. The one that I found for this game that I liked in particular is that there is still an aspect of the Eagles that are undefeated, and that is the first half over. In all of their games this year, the Eagles remain undefeated in the first half, going 8-0-1 so far against the spread. So if you're looking for another potential angle here and you're a little bit concerned about the 6.5 either side, maybe you go with the first half over in Eagles and Colts instead.
Very interesting. Great points. Be curious to see how it shakes out. Another game as we roll through here. Interesting to see how it shakes out. Pats, Jets. Pats at the home team. Both teams off the bye. The Patriots laying 3.5 points. Total is the smallest total of the week. It is at 38.5. I will be brief with this. I have New England minus 3.5. I don't trust Zach Wilson at all against Belichick. Simple as that. Really is.
Yeah. One other note that I think a lot of our viewers, in particular Chiefs fans, might have some interest in is Carl Cheffers is the referee in this
Oh,
game.
dear
And
God Almighty! Take the
so
under.
take. And also, I saw this note via Warren Sharp over at Sharp Football Analysis.
Yeah.
He not only does he lean towards favorites and home favorites in these types of games, but they also call the second most penalties in the NFL, and the Jets on the road average more than 8 penalties per game. A lot of them as a result of pass interference and roughing the passer. That's right up Carl Cheffers' lane, and especially for any Chiefs fans that remember the Chris Jones play, that's something that I think a lot of people need to consider as well. For as good as the Jets' defense is, this line is still at 3.5, and part of the reason that New England has just found a way to make Zach Wilson go from a mediocre quarterback to a terrible quarterback in New England just well here. I think that plus the referee matchup leads into New England, so we're both on the same page here. I like the Pats minus 3.5.
Yeah. I think the Pats just until Zach Wilson plays well in one of these games, I cannot buy the Jets offense against a good coach. All right. Houston, home to Washington in a game that might be offensive to all senses, and yet it's important because Washington's 5-5 and right there in the mix. The Commanders laying a field goal on the road. 41.5 is the total here. And again, we find ourselves on opposite sides here.
We do. The Texans, despite only having one straight up win this season, are actually 4-1 against the spread. That number is actually slightly better at home, and good for Washington because after they started 1-4 against the spread, including a 4-game losing streak, they've now gone 4-0-1 over their last 5 games against the spread. I was able to. The fact that I'm able to get the hook here is a big reason why I'm taking Houston here. The way they can compete well at home. The game against the Giants last week, I know that they lost and they didn't cover. But Again, it was another late comeback by the Giants and just a bad mistake from Davis Mills at the end of that game. Washington coming off of a short week after by far and away their biggest win of the season just feels like a letdown spot for them. Maybe they win by a field goal at the end, but that's still a cover for Houston. So I like the fact, especially if I'm getting it at 3.5. Give me the Texans here this week.
Fair enough. All salient points. I am rolling with Washington. I think the Texans absolutely stink out loud. They have one win this year. I think Washington under Heineke playing a lot better.
Yeah,
they're playing a lot better. I think they believe in their quarterback, and I don't think they believed in Wentz. So I like Heineke in this spot. I think Washington wins. There's a real world where the entire NFC East makes the playoffs. I'm not sure I'd like to live in that world, but I might be forced to. Nobody's coming out of the South. Nobody's coming out of the North other than the division winners.
Right.
The Rams and Cardinals stink. I mean, it's going to be minimum 3 teams out of the NFC East, and it's probably like Washington or Seattle. Like, that's pretty much where it's at this point. Maybe you'll throw out the Niners. I think the Niners win the division. I think Washington wins. I think it's 6-5. All right. Rolling along. Speaking of 2 teams that stink, the Saints hosting the Rams. I can't spend more than 2 seconds on this game because it's offensive to everything I stand for as someone who covers this league. Both these teams, I don't know what's going on with the offenses. The Rams can't block anybody, and now with Cooper Kupp being out, I am honestly fascinated to know what the hell happens in this game. Like, does Matthew Stafford do one of those those viral videos where he throws the ball up and runs and catches it himself? Do the Rams just punt on first down and everybody just pulls a white flag out of their pants? Like, I have no idea what's going to happen. Meanwhile, the Saints are so beat up that I don't believe in them either. And Andy Dalton has been just increasingly terrible as the weeks have gone on. I'm just taking the points in this game and siding with the Rams. And that's it. Like, there's no reason. Like, I don't believe in the Rams. I just really don't believe in the Saints. I got it at +4.5. And that's how I'm rolling. I just think it's a game. Take the points and hope for a close game.
Yeah, this has been a rough month for the Rams. They've gone 0-5-1 in their last 6 November matchups against the spread. Meanwhile, the Saints are not only just 3-7 straight up this year, they're also 3-7 against the spread. The one time they've been a home favorite this year, they have covered. But again, the line has actually been shifting quite a bit in favor of the Rams a little bit on the later side. You have to imagine that it's not coming from the public because the public has been burned so many times from the Rams this year. So they must know something. Either Stafford is looking much better. He's going to be healthy. They figured out a new game plan to get Ben Skoranek or whatever his name is
Yeah, I don't think
involved.
that's it. I think it's Andy Dalton stinks.
Well, that's also the case too, and it's
Yeah.
unfortunate because Alvin Kamara was really starting to look really good with Dalton under center. He was targeting him more often than Drew Brees was targeting Kamara, which was pretty remarkable. And just they haven't adjusted, and their defense has been atrocious. And Verderame, I thought this Saints defense was going to be pretty good this year. At least I did.
We did. No, I did too.
Yeah, they've been good against the run still, but it's been just a nightmare in the passing game. Watch out for Tyler Higbee. He was my anytime touchdown pick last week. I think he had 7 or 8 catches, did not get into the end zone. I think he leads all tight ends by a wide margin for most receptions without getting into the end zone. He's due to have like a 2 touchdown day at some point. This might be the day that he does it. And maybe I'll just throw $5 on him to get 15-1 odds to get 2 touchdowns in the game. I might just take $5 the rest of the year, bet it on Tyler Higbee for a 2 touchdown day because that dude is due.
Fair enough. I like it. By the way, the people are asking, they need to know who's on the Wheaties box behind you.
Who is on the Wheaties box? It is the 1991-92 back-to-back Chicago Bulls when they defeated the Portland Trailblazers. And then the other one is from the 91 team. So, got the early 90s Wheaties boxes going full on. And I don't think I've had a Wheaties since the late 1990s, but the boxes still remain.
Awesome. Love it. All right. We got 10 minutes left here. We're going to get through these games come hell or high water. We got 7 to go. Giants, Lions at MetLife. It is windy as all get out. And let me tell you something. If you ever sat at old Giants stadiums, I did. When the wind blows there, my God, it is a crap show. Giants favored by a field goal. Totals 44.5. Look, I took the over. I'm banking on the Lions to score some points in this game to open up. But you are concerned about the wind here for the over and how that affects things. But I am riding with the over in this game. I think it's something like 27-24.
I'm not as concerned about the wind, and it is an important point because more often than not, when you have wind gusts of 20 miles per hour or more, drastically impacts the over. But judging on how these two teams kind of get going in this game, I might be leaning towards the over here as well. Just because these two teams really like to run the ball. And again, that's part of the reason why I think Detroit can hang around here. It's going to force them to use more DeAndre Swift. Jamal Williams has had a really good season so far. Giants continue to, come back late in games, and they're very well coached. And Brian Dable is a dude that the more I learn about him, the more I love him. Like, what a fantastic hire from the Giants this year. But I do think Detroit can hang with them just because they have as much explosiveness in the running game with DeAndre Swift compared to Saquon Barkley. Barkley's got the overall better numbers, and he's been healthy this year. But now that Swift is back in the mix, that completely changes the Lions' offense. The one concern for me regarding Detroit is Jared Goff, and this is from Evan Abrams over at the Action Network, just 1-10-1 straight up in his last 12 starts on the road. He has not won 2 straight games away from home since 2018. Obviously, Detroit had the comeback win last week against the Chicago Bears.
And you have Detroit winning straight up.
I do. As a straight up underdog this year, the Giants are 5-1-0, but they've only won 3 games straight up as a favorite. So the bulk of their games this year have been as underdogs winning, but kind of just sort of mediocre when they're an actual favorite, especially at home.
All right. This next game, I won't even say anything because it's your Bears are involved here. Falcons at home against the Bears. Line's 2.5 for Atlanta. Totals 48.5. I got it at Bears over 3. Yeah, I'll stick with it. I think the Bears cover the spread, and maybe they even win, but I think they will cover the field goal.
Yeah, it's an just because the Falcons have been really good at running the football, and that has been a disaster for the Bears defense this year. I think they're last in the NFL in yards per play allowed on the ground. Cordero Patterson might have multiple touchdowns in this game, but you know who else might have multiple touchdowns is Justin Fields. Dude cannot be stopped right now. He's on like a Michael Vick-esque run, number 1 quarterback in fantasy over the last 3 weeks. But I'm going slightly off the beaten path here. I'm going to take the Bears team total of over 22.5 points in this game. They've exceeded their team total in their last 4 games. Granted, they haven't won them, but it's still a Bears offense right now that continues to hit the over in 4 straight games. Justin Fields has continued to just be an absolute marvel on the ground this year. This is also the largest projected total that the Bears have had all season. It broke the record from last week, which was at 48.5 against the Lions. I don't know if we're going to see a total Verderame in the 50s for Chicago, but I can assure you that it's been several years since we've seen the Bears actually have a closing total of 50 heading into this game.
Yeah, I wouldn't have thought about that, but that makes sense. I like the Bears to cover. I think I even like them to win, but I like them to cover.
Yeah, I like them. I like them as well on the money line.
Let's get into the late games. I refuse to talk about this game out of principle. I do. This game.
Can I just give a pick then? We can move on.
Mike, bring up the bets. I'm so offended by this game. I mean, yeah, we both do. I can't speak. I think this game's actually giving me a stroke. We both like the Raiders to cover. This game is offensive in every sense of the word. Honestly, they should show this game to people being interrogated for crimes. People will admit to things that happened before they were born just to turn off the game. So, you know it's bad when during the week one of the coaches, and in this case it was Hackett, says, "Well, somebody's got to win this game." Not good. Not good. All right, let's move on. Nobody needs to see this. Minnesota, game of the week, in my opinion, at home, hosting America's team, the Dallas Cowboys, who are favored by 1.5. The 8-1 Vikings at home off a win over Buffalo. Underdogs in their own building by 1.5. Total's 48.5. I will start off here. I took the over. I got it at 47.5. I just think there's going to be a lot of points. Dallas is very good defensively, but they can be had at times. Minnesota's defense is not good. I think this is a game where it gets into the high 20s. I think it's 28-24, 30-27. I don't know who I like to win in this game, but I like the points. I think a lot of points will be scored.
Yeah, my favorite bet of the week is on the Cowboys money line here on the road because, both offenses are more than capable, but there's a lot of issues that I think are being hidden this year by Kirk Cousins. One of my favorite props for today, and you can read that article over at BetSided. One of my favorites on the day is Kirk Cousins to throw an interception at -115. It's been overlooked because of how good the Vikings are, but his touchdown to interception ratio of 14-8. And Verderame, he's gone over his total interceptions in 2 of the previous 4 full seasons that he's been in Minnesota. Cousins has turned the ball over a lot, and it's been basically unnoticed because they've had some remarkable comebacks. They've won games that they typically lose. And Dallas is number 1 in the NFL in sack rate. They're going to put pressure on Cousins, which is where he tends to turn the ball over. In late afternoon games, he's 7-14 straight up over his career. Minnesota is just kind of at the top of the luck chain right now. And you have a Dallas team that is coming off of the first time in 195 games that they have had a 14-point lead blown and lost the game. They were now 195-1 in those scenarios. The Cowboys are the better team. And I know they're playing in Minnesota and the Vikings are fired up and they've caught the solid end a lot of these games. I just think it's too much Dallas defense, too much pressure on Cousins. And Justin Jefferson can only do so much to bail him out again and again and again.
Yeah, when Kirk Cousins is being relied on to bail you out again and again, it is disturbing to say the least. All right. AFC North battle. Pittsburgh, home against the Bengals. This is a rematch of week 1 when Joe Burrow had 5 turnovers and the Bengals still should have won the game. The Bengals only like 3.5 points as they come off the bye. Pittsburgh, of course, off of its win over New Orleans last week. This game in Pittsburgh. You and I have the same thought here. We both lay the 4.5 from earlier in the week with the Bengals, which is funny because as you mentioned on Stack in the Box, the Steelers are the best bet in the world to cover as a home underdog, and yet both of us dumb enough to go against that.
I know. It's pretty remarkable, but I was on that same trend last week and ended up being favorable. Mike Tomlin, since 2007, 16-3-3 against the spread as a home underdog over the last 15 years. And by the way, where this game opened at 4.5 and when ended up going up to 5, according to Jay Morrison of The Athletic, the 5 point spread was the biggest in Bengals history for a game at Pittsburgh. The previous highest was 4.5. That was back in 1986, and the Steelers ended up winning that game by 21 points. It's the first time the Bengals have been favored in Pittsburgh since 1989. And you're right. A lot of the sharps and a lot of the money is on the Pittsburgh side. I don't think it's just because of that trend. I think the defense changes when TJ Watt is in. But I also am banking on the Bengals making some more adjustments from the last time they played. Bengals defense is still really strong, and you still have Kenny Pickett, who's learning in week to week versus Mitchell Trubisky, who granted doesn't have the upside that Pickett had, but that game he just kind of played less mistake-free football, and that ended up being the difference because Burrow turned the ball over 5 times. And that game still went into overtime, by the way. I think Pittsburgh can cover the number here, even though they're on the road, even though all the trends and the money are against them.
Yeah. Well, no, listen, and Pittsburgh at home, by the way, for this. So it should be fascinating to see how it all shakes out. Look, the Bengals need to win this game. Their schedule's ridiculous after this. They have to win this game. Sunday Night Football at SoFi, the Chargers and the Chiefs. It's a de facto home game for Kansas City, as it always is. The Chiefs right now laying 5.5. This line dropped all the way from when it was a look-at line of like 7.5. It's down at the 5.5. I think at one point it was 4.5. The total 52.5, highest of the week. I'll be brief here. Look, I think the Chiefs are going to cover this game. I picked them to cover at 6.5. Every time they play the Chargers, it's close. And so that says, like, you should take the points here and ride with the Chargers. I think Bosa being out is a game-changing injury. I really do. Like, I think the Chargers are going to have to do extra stuff to get home. And if they have to do that, I think the Chiefs are going to smoke them. I think the Chiefs are going to throw the ball over the field. The Chargers don't do anything well defensively. Literally don't do anything well. The only thing they're decent at is the red zone. They're bad on third down. They're bad on pressure rates. They're bad on sacks. They don't cover particularly well. They're atrocious against the run. I think the Chiefs are going to win this game by, 10 points.
Yeah, I get that perspective as well. And now the line continues to move. I might pay something on the Chiefs as well. I just think the sharps are wrong, or I think this is an ideal spot for Kansas City. I took them at over 49.5 for the purposes of this show. I have them at over 50 when we put our bets in. I don't even mind Kansas City at minus 5.5 as well. They've been really good at covering on the road this year. They're 3-1 against the spread on the road. The Chargers are 1-3-0 against the spread at home. Patrick Mahomes is 1-5 straight on Sunday night. Away from Arrowhead, he's 24-14-1 against the spread, 9-4 against the spread against AFC West opponents. But the reason that I like the over here, Keenan Allen, Mike Williams are back. That's going to make a noticeable difference for the Chargers offense. And since Justin Herbert started in this Kansas City LA rivalry, every game that they have played together has gone over 50.5 in 4 of the last 5 games, including the last 4 straight.
Great call. Great stuff. Last game, Monday night, Niners, Cardinals in Mexico. The Niners are laying 8.5 points. Total's 43.5. I know you and I are on the same wavelength here. Cardinals cover. Look, that's a big number for Jimmy Garoppolo. I'm sorry. And I don't even think the Cardinals are good. And I really like the Niners, but that's a lot of points. Divisional game, a team that offensively is not going to get a bunch of big plays. I think the Cardinals cover the number. I do. I think the Niners win probably by a touchdown or so, but that's a lot of points to lay.
It's too big. And I found some of my favorite trends from the week. You ready for this? Kyle Shanahan as a favorite against the spread is 19-28-1 since 2017 when he started with the 49ers. That's terrible. The ESPN stats and info. Cliff Kingsbury is the only coach in the Super Bowl era to have a losing record as a favorite and a winning record outright as an underdog. Like, that's insane. Like, he's 17-16-1 outright as a dog over his career, but he has a losing record as a favorite. Kingsbury and the Cardinals are also 7-1-1 against the spread versus the 49ers in their last 9 matchups. He's 22-11-2 as an underdog against the spread. And this might be my favorite, like, absurd random nugget from Brandon Anderson. Cliff Kingsbury, 13-1-1 against the spread versus coaches that have never won a Super Bowl. Kyle Shanahan fits that bill.
I can't do any better than that. That's awesome.
Isn't that great?
Heisler's bringing the heat today. The absolute high heat. That is Fantastic. That is also the most predictable thing ever with Kingsbury. There is a favorite, they
Makes
suck.
no sense.
But then as an underdog, they're like somehow frisky. Awesome. Love it. Hey, listen, everybody in the chat, thank you so much, Steven. Love you picking the games along with us, man. Really appreciate everybody being here. Whether it be, Steven, a Chance, Backpage, Mighty, Jalen, all the way on down. Even you, Lucas, taking shots at my Devils. Connor McJesus is coming to Newark. Hey, Lucas, I got news for you. They already kicked his ass once. To do it again. Hey, listen. Mike in Sweden who says, good evening. Man's got a time change. He's still here. PA, Jason, all of you. Thank you so much for being here. For Ben Heisler, I am Matt Verderame. This has been Best Bets with BetSided. Week 11 in the NFL slate. Hey, have a happy Thanksgiving. All the best to you and yours. Thanks so much for joining us. See you again next week.